All right. For more on Apple, let's bring in Dan Ives, Global Head of Technology Research at Wedbush. Dan, great to see you.
Yeah, great to be here.
You're always coming prepared, well-dressed, ready to go. We appreciate that. In terms of the Apple picture, where do you stand on this? I mean, it's you had a note out early on saying it's a fairy tale to move production back to the United States. What do you think the administration is after here? What can Apple do?
Yeah, I mean, it's a Pinocchio story, a fairy tale, the reality of actually having iPhone production in the U.S. Because in my opinion, that would take 4 to 5 years, 20 or 30 billion, even to move 15, 20% of the supply chain. And then if you actually produced iPhones in the U.S., you'd be looking at $3,500 iPhones. And so I view it as Apple's situation is they try to pivot around India, and I think that was a smart strategy. And now look, backs against the wall. It was a Twilight Zone day today for any Apple investor, given Apple's done all the right things in terms of pivoting out of China and now saying come to the U.S. That's fairy tale.
Right. Secretary Bessent was interviewed on Fox earlier and made some comments around this, but basically saying that, you know, it's a supply chain, particularly for semiconductors, that is a concern, and that's where they want to see Apple move their part of their supply chain back. Is there anything that Apple can do more surgically to satisfy the administration in terms of an investment on the semiconductor side in the United States?
No, it's a great question. Look, just for someone like myself, 25 years, spent so much of my time in Asia, in China, Taiwan, Vietnam. The reality of doing this, it sounds great behind a microphone in the Beltway. Sure. But the reality is when you walk through fabs in Taiwan and you walk through what you see in China, that's going to be here. Again, if you want $3,500 iPhones, we should make them in New Jersey. And I think the problem is that from when it comes to the semi world, and I think Jensen and NVIDIA are seeing this firsthand, is that it's the IP of the supply chain. How's it built? Where are the chips? Where are the raw materials? And that's why for Apple, look, especially like WWDC is going to be a strong event. And they are in a massive position, in my opinion, from an install-based perspective when it comes to, you know, AI. But they are right now back against a wall that they've been put into because they're in the eye of the storm in terms of this tariff trade war.
And when you look at the president say it's not just about Apple, it's any other phone company, does that make you feel a little bit better that maybe there's a quasi-bottom put into Apple? And you just, to pick up where you left off, WWDC. Do you see any outliers, or what do you think they're capable of announcing?
I mean, it's like me and you, Greg. We're stuck at New York Airport for 6 hours together. I mean, yeah, we're together, but it's still best.
I can only imagine
we actually
what
have
it'd be like.
I mean, it could be a good time.
It could go either way.
It could go either way. But to your point, the reality is like, look, WWDC is like that's going to be another key event in terms of that AI strategy. They play him from clearly behind, you know, the 8 ball, but this is an opportunity for them to actually show where they could ultimately get to when it comes to AI. But the problem is that it's clouded because of ultimately what we're seeing here.
Okay, so let's say that 25% is the number, and that is going to be the number. And Apple says, you know, it doesn't make sense for us to move production back. We'll pay 25% on the iPhones that we sell in the United States made overseas. When you think about that price increase passed on to the consumer, where is demand destruction? What is that point where it's too expensive, it's going to be a headwind? They haven't raised their price on the iPhone in years, and now they're at this point where they are going to raise their prices potentially because of all these great AI features that they're going to unveil. But then there also has to be another price increase theoretically with the tariffs.
Yeah, and I think if everything's equal, they're not raising prices on the iPhone 17, but then it comes down to they're not going to eat it. They're not eating at 25%. Right. And if you pass this to the consumer, I mean, you have what could be 3, 5, 7% demand destruction. And part of the issue there is that for Apple, they're in this situation, like, what do they do? Which side do they go? And I think the reality now, it comes down to, like, how they navigate this. Is this a game of high-stakes poker in terms of negotiations with Trump? Do they say something in the next 5 years, we'll commit to X% of iPhone production by 2027, just to sort of play that game? But what they're going to invest in, it's AI. I mean, iPhone production in the U.S., to me, is just not feasible.
So Dan, I thought, by the way, I thought like seersucker and linen, fuchsia, corduroy jackets weren't before Memorial Day. I mean, it's a big move for you out here. I mean, you're out, you know, a couple more days. I mean, it's open season, but
it is exactly.
You look